Okay, so now we are go directly more about what you are doing daily right now. As a business development director, what do you usually do for the working day? How can you start the day? And for sure, how you have the efficiency day at your at
Cool.
your at your idea. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, um, what I'm doing right now, so I'm still
Mm,
doing some consultancy for Sense, where I
mm,
manage some of the key accounts,
mm,
I help them with some strategy. But I also have my own personal brand
mm,
consultancy and coaching business,
mm,
where I work with entrepreneurs and founders to help them with their personal brand and utilize platforms like LinkedIn to sell more.
mm,
Um, in terms of my day to day, I have my morning routine that gets me into the right frame of mind to
mm,
for the work environment. Um, but my day is normally comprised of probably two or three client calls or general network calls where I'm looking to build relationships with kind of key people within
mm,
my spaces. Um, and there'll be an element of content creation that I do as well. So that's a big part of everything I do, whether it's from a business development
mm,
point of view for Sense or whether it's for my own personal branding. Um, Content creation, putting my sort of
mm,
kind of name out there, that's a big part of what I do.
mm,
So naturally, day to day, things change. I work with a lot of different businesses and people in different time zones.
mm,
So sometimes I'm quite early on calls if I'm dealing with perhaps the United States, Canada, or maybe Australia. Um, Other days I kind of start later and finish later if I'm dealing a lot with kind of European clients who are
mm.
6 or 7 hours behind. So um, I would say there's a little bit less structure than when I was working in London, where I was
Mm,
just looking after sort of UK European businesses. Yeah, I've got quite a spread of different clients and people within my network these days.
mm,
But in terms of the fundamentals, my role is made up of nurturing, building new relationships,
mm,
generating content, which is where I get a lot of my business from. Um, that's kind of what I do now. My first year back in Vietnam, I was head of business development and marketing for Sense. That
mm,
was more office based then, and a big part
mm,
of my role then was managing the sales and marketing teams, working on strategies, training, hiring, and sort of managing key deals with my sales team.
mm. Okay, cool. So seems like you have a very, very quite busy day. So how do you keep yourselves balanced? How you keep yourself healthy and how you keep yourself keep focusing on working? Because as you mentioned, you have to meet many, many clients in a different time zone from Europe, from in other countries. So how you keep yourself healthy and you
Yeah.
have your private times to, traveling to meet the people around in your real life? How can you do
Yeah, it's
that?
a good question because
Mm,
it's very, very important. And I think
mm,
in this day and age, there's a really big problem with people
mm,
suffering from burnout.
mm,
Uh, and we don't know too much about the mind and mental health. We're only just
mm,
starting to understand it.
mm,
But there is an increasing, in this day and age with people working remotely
mm,
and the level of our connectivity, and we can answer emails with a click of a button on our phone. We're always connected to social media. What that means is it's much more difficult to create a disconnect between
mm.
work and personal life, and
Yeah.
it's very easy to fall into the trap of continuing to work or working too long in the day, and that's not
Mm,
sustainable. I can speak from personal experience. So for
mm,
me, I value and prioritize my mental health and
mm,
physical health as much as my professional life.
mm,
Um, so for me, I'm really hot, but again, because I mentioned I work with quite a few different time zones,
mm,
I have to be quite careful in making sure I don't take on too much. So setting boundaries, saying no is important for me. I don't want to work too many hours in a day, so I'll be very careful not to overload my day
mm,
and spread calls or client calls out over a week. And then on top of that, I make sure that I exercise regularly. I go to the gym, I play football, I get out and about. I go for a walk once a day, get fresh
mm,
air. I prioritize going on trips, going on holidays, seeing the beautiful parts of Vietnam just as much as I prioritize my own professional growth. And
mm,
from my personal experience, the less hours I work in a work week, the more
mm,
efficient I am, the more I
mm,
get done. So,
mm,
contrary to popular belief, the less hours I'm spending working, the more work I produce.
mm,
On the days where I've tried to cram a 10, 11, or 12-hour day, my output on that day will be less than when I do 5 or 6 hours of work in that day.
mm,
Um, and with the rest of the day, I'm out, I'm seeing friends, I'm going for a walk, I'm exercising. I do a lot of things like meditation and mindfulness practice as well.
mm,
That's a part of my morning routine.
mm,
Um, and I say I do all of these things because I didn't in the past, and I got myself to a very uncomfortable, dark place. And what suffered then was my career and my professional life. So, I'm a big believer in prioritizing mental and physical health.
mm.
And uh, those kind of things just improve our productivity, they improve our creativity, and our work will benefit as a result of that.
Okay, cool, cool. I think it's a good advice for me too, because as you know, I'm a guy who's working as in the production side and I'm a developer too. So sometimes, as a developer, you coding for like a full time in the
Mm.
company. But then when you go back home, some things like make you want to sit on the computer again and doing
Mm.
the coding like every night. It's make me like, when you work in the production side, especially in the IT industry, just some things make you want to working overtime, you just want to
Sure,
sit
sure.
codings. And I think it's good. It's motivate me a lot. But sometimes when the weekends come, I have no feeling like
Mm.
do exactly it's the same day because at the weekend I'm working too, I'm coding too. And then it's like after a month, after like a few weeks, I feel a little bit tired and like because I'm a guy who's workaholic and work a lot. So I think this the advice it's really good for me is to keep balance between the professional life and the
Yeah.
real life and private life. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Um
Yeah, no worries.
yeah, yeah. One more thing, as you already mentioned, you are the remote worker now and just relocated to Da Nang. Do you think that it's a good idea, especially for the remote working now? Because I also have some private job as a remote worker in the past. But honestly, because from my vision, the guy who's working in the production sites, if you're working in the product size, for me, it's better to go to the office because you meet the teams, you can tracking the people, what people the team's doing, and you can find the bug, you can find the error, and then you can keep receive the feedbacks from the client and then share with the team immediately. So you can do everything very fast, and then
Mm.
we can fix that very quickly and then share it back to the clients. But it's very
Yeah.
efficient. But from the vision of the guy who's working as a business development side, what do you think about it? Remote worker, it's good. It's the
Yeah.
same.
So yeah. So I think it depends. So obviously what I'm doing at the minute is predominantly freelance.
Mm,
Naturally I'm more remote working. But
mm,
if I were to be running a business myself,
mm,
the way that I kind of passionately view the workspace and the modern workspace is a flexible environment. So if you hire the right people and you
mm,
take care of hiring the right people with the right attitude that buy into your product and your service and your vision, um, we don't need to that if you've got the right people, we don't need to instruct them how to work. They
mm,
are adults and they will know when they need to be in the office and when they don't, you
mm,
know. And I would always say with my team, you don't need to tell me when you want to be in the office and when you don't, because
mm,
somebody who's got the right attitude
mm,
will want to get the thing done. So as you said, there are times when it's useful to be in the office together. You get
mm,
things done quickly when you need to discuss a project, right?
mm,
But that should, if you hire the right people, that will come from the team. The
mm,
flip side of it is I'll never question it. If a team member of mine wants to work remotely, they don't need to tell me that. They don't need to tell me what they're doing. That's personal, right? Again,
mm,
if you hire the right people, they will buy into the vision of the company, and they will know what is the best way for them to get the most out of their day.
Mm,
And everybody is different. You know, you have maybe you employ a really talented single
mm,
mother, right? And
mm,
she looks after children, right? That
mm.
person at that point in their life will need to work
Yeah, yeah,
far more remotely.
yeah.
That's absolutely fine. You
Mm,
know, when I was working in London, and it was during
mm,
the COVID time, and we went to this flexible working.
mm,
I spent more time in the office. That's just because at that point in my life, I,
mm,
you know, I preferred being in the office. I didn't have any kids,
mm,
and I didn't have any ties to being at home.
mm,
But that was my choice. I didn't need to be sort of instructed. Okay, you go to
mm,
the office, you do this, you do that.
mm,
And I think that's the reality with businesses these days and the way it's
mm,
going. Find good
mm,
people, give them the flexibility of being able to work, and naturally they will find what is right for that day.
mm,
You know,
mm,
that's my take on it anyway.
mm. So you have an experience as a remote worker. What qualities and working methods do you think that a remote worker need to have?
For a remote worker,
Mm,
I think organization and structure,
mm,
um, you know, and I would say, the reality is that in this modern world, when we are
mm,
always on, structure can be flexible, if that makes sense. So,
mm,
I give the example, like my days and the hours I work change depending on what time zone I'm dealing with. So for me, the structure is there to plan my week ahead and say, okay,
mm,
if I'm going to be working late Tuesday evening, I'm going to
mm,
start later in the day, and I'll make sure that I don't book any calls for the morning, for example. And if I've got, on Thursday, if I'm dealing with, Australian projects, clients, and I'm quite packed up in the morning, I'm going to make sure I finish early. So it's
mm,
just taking that level of management into your own hands, making your life manageable,
mm,
um, managing your time, managing your mental health, managing your physical health. Because as you
mm.
said, when you are remote working, the lines between work and personal life, they tend to blur a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, so if you are working at home, if you are at home, you're not at a coffee shop and stuff like that. When
Mm.
you finish your last call of the day, if it's 6 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever, go out. Don't start watching Netflix on the same laptop that you worked on, because your
Yeah,
mind is not going to differentiate.
yeah, I
uh,
agree.
and it's so important for me to limit screen time.
Mm,
So if I'm working, there's one day and I've got a lot of calls, or I'm on a webinar and a podcast, I'm going to plan that day, and I'm going to go, right, when
mm.
that last call is over, I'm going to leave my phone at home. I'm not going to be on the laptop. I'm going to go out and I'm going to do some exercise, because my head and my eyes are spending too
Yeah,
long looking at
yeah,
the
that's
screen.
enough, right? That's enough
Yeah,
working. Yeah.
absolutely. When you consider like 10, 15 years ago when I started working, right? And, I was in the office and everything was a desktop. And, when I would leave the office,
Mm.
I couldn't work.
Yeah.
The phones were not smartphones. So, like I couldn't check my email. So when I left at 5:30 or 6 p.m.,
Mm.
there was no more work, like
Yeah,
it could, even if I wanted to, I couldn't. So
yeah.
naturally my brain would go, okay, cool, evening is me time,
Mm.
whatever I want to do. But
Mm.
now, because of this, I can leave this podcast afterwards and finish my work for the day.
Mm.
But it's so easy then to just keep working, or keep
Mm.
checking emails, or maybe I'll do this, or even just go on
Mm.
social media. And my brain doesn't differentiate. My brain is
Yeah.
still working.
Mm.
Um, so that's the biggest thing for me, is time management, organization, when you're remote working.
Cool, cool. So it seems like you are a person who have a very good management skill, right? You know how to good for your professional life, but you also have experience to, keep your personal life good.
Mm,
Yeah. Okay. So just another questions about the tracking task. I know there is some different because I'm a guy who's working at the production site and at data analytics. So in the product side, we're usually using from some platform to tracking the task to see how the people, how the progress is going and how's the projects how projects going, and is it any feedback from the clients such as Jira, Trello, or the ClickUp to track the
Mm.
task and see everything. But as a business development side, have you ever used any platform to check the progress with the team and the tasks you already input to them? Can you share a little bit? Can you share a little bit about them and the
Yeah,
advantages
sure.
when you use that?
Yeah, sure. So,
Mm,
I've used a few over the years.
mm,
First few companies, I was heavily using
mm,
Salesforce.
mm.
The last two companies, we've implemented HubSpot as
Ah,
the kind of key CRM
mm,
for kind of. I mean, you can do it. It's so much more than just a sales CRM now. You can do so much in HubSpot. They've got fantastic support. They're always evolving the product set. So,
mm,
um, yeah, for if a company with two, three, four or more sales staff and then a marketing team as well. I think from
mm,
my personal experience, HubSpot does everything that you need out of a really good quality CRM.
mm,
It's great for tracking, great for tracking campaigns, marketing
mm,
campaigns.
mm.
Um, as with any CRM, it's as good as the quality of the data that you put into it.
Mm,
So making sure that you import good quality data that's relevant to your ICP and whatnot obviously goes without saying. But yeah, HubSpot is something I'd always fall back on if I were to take another um, head of BD role and be
uh,
asked about what CRM to implement. I would go with HubSpot.
okay.
Yeah.
And another thing's like a bit private that because you're working in the business side. So do you have any channels on the website that you and your team usually use to see and looking the clients and to see how the market's working,
Yeah,
finding the potential customer, we can say.
finding the potential customers. I mean, again, it depends whether you're B2C or B2B, but I've always
Mm,
been B2B. So for me, when I've worked for software companies, data center businesses, cloud computing companies, LinkedIn
mm,
is the best platform out there.
LinkedIn,
They've
yeah.
got nearly a billion or over a billion users now.
Mm,
Um, it is the it's the most up to date database of people and their jobs. And what's the first thing that you do when you change job and you change career? You change your LinkedIn, right?
mm,
So it's the best way. And LinkedIn I used to view as a kind of glorified CV or a resume, but now it's so much more than that. It's a social platform. It's a great tool, not just to connect and approach somebody, but to really tailor your outreach, right?
mm,
So it's a great place to go and connect with your ICP. If you target CTOs and IT directors
mm,
of fintech businesses in London, you can go and pull lists using Sales Navigator on LinkedIn, and then see on their newsfeed what do they talk about, what is the type of content that they create, what are they
mm,
interested in, what are their pain points. Go engage in their content.
mm,
Start to create your own content in areas that you're interested in that aligns with your ICP.
mm,
And then when you start to outreach directly to them, you've already had that initial engagement through their content, them seeing your content, and then suddenly that moment you reach out, it's no longer a cold outreach anymore.
mm,
That's a warm outreach.
mm,
So you don't have to rely on this, mass connections, mass DMs that people used to do or still do, but very ineffectively.
mm,
Um, for me, there's no other B2B tool like that in terms of
mm.
being able to reach out to people. And it's only going to become more and more like that over time.
Yeah. Okay. So just a little bit curious, like you already mentioned that you have your own business. I just want to ask about how big side of this right now, or you are like one man's company right now. Just a curious.
Yeah, so just me.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm looking into working with a sort of an old colleague on helping me with some additional work, but it's yeah, just me at the minute. I'm doing an element of kind of consultancy with a couple of
mm,
organizations and their sales team, but also working one-on-one with a couple of founders. So it's a little bit like a personal brand consultancy, but we also do some one-on-one bespoke coaching where, I help founders with things like public speaking and
Mm,
presentation skills, as well as how do you create good content? How do you go from here to here on LinkedIn, and how do you
mm,
generate business? So um, when I work I mainly work one-on-one with founders. As I said, I'm doing a couple of things for some sales teams, but when I work one-on-one with founders, it's very much a bespoke consulting slash coaching approach that I take,
mm,
over 6 months or a year.
mm, mm.
Um, yeah.
Okay, so talk about the human resource. It's linked to me to have another, like a last question for today. As you can see now, we already see that Vietnam is a very potential country about the IT and
Mm-hmm.
technical size,
Yeah.
But actually, it's very very different. Like according to the recent survey from by topdevelopers.com, they said
Mm.
that only about 35% of the IT or the technical students can meet the quality of work in Vietnam when they graduate. So before the ending of the first issue for the show today, do you have any advice, especially for the young people, student or the people who is still studying in the IT side, technical side,
Mm.
or just only the people who are ambitious and wish to work in this field? Do you have any advice, especially in the technical side or in the BD side?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I would say with any side, I think the
Mm,
most important thing would be, if you have an idea of the area that you want to work within,
mm,
go and find some spaces within there that you're really passionate about.
mm,
So if you've, you know, if you're whether you're in business or whether you're a developer, go and find a section of
mm,
the space that you're in. If you're a developer and you're interested in crypto and blockchain, you know, go and find a couple of areas that you're really passionate about. Is it DeFi? Is it NFTs? Whatever it is,
mm,
and start connecting to people within that space who are further along in their journey than you are. And the second thing would be start to create content around that.
mm,
It will help you from a learning and standpoint, while simultaneously building up your profile and your brand. So when
mm,
then you do go and you get that interview, or you start to reach out to people and find out about your next stage in your career, you're starting to build that personal brand. You're starting to build that trust and that authority.
mm,
Um, but the key thing is that you're doing it with an area you're interested in,
mm,
'cause it's sustainable. If I were to tell somebody to go and create content around something because they think it's good for their career, but they're not interested in it, they won't stick with it over time. So the most important thing to stay consistent is find something you're interested in.
mm,
Uh, and this will change over time, so don't worry, you don't have to find your niche immediately, but just go and find 5 areas loosely connected with where you want to work that you're really interested in, and go learn, connect with people, create content, and see where that leads you. That would be my
mm.
advice, definitely.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sean. I think the postcard time for the first topic is also over. Thank you very much for joining with me. And of course, don't let me it's too early. We will meet again in the upcoming topic, but on a completely different. It's football.
Cool. Looking
Yeah.
nice. Looking forward to it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much for inviting
Yeah.
me on
Thank
this
you.
first
Thank you.
episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Lynn.
Yeah. Bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.